The day the HOA declared my island an unauthorized amenity, the morning breeze tasted like dust and betrayal. The voiceover, calm and measured, introduces Elijah, 50s, refined, sharp intelligence in his eyes. The camera pans slowly across the preserve at river's edge, a manicured, quiet suburban neighborhood where every lawn is perfectly green and every mailbox is identical. It's the visual definition of controlled perfection. Elijah is standing on his back deck, a mug of coffee untouched in his hand. The deck overlooks his property, which is strikingly different from his neighbors'. Where their yards meet a line of perfectly trimmed hedges, Elijah's property descends to a small, private body of water, a sculpted pond. And right in the center, accessed by a low, rustic wooden bridge, is his masterpiece, a small, man-made island. Not a massive landmass, but a tranquil, perfect circle of land, crowned with a single, mature willow tree and a small, stone-paved meditation space. The tranquility is shattered by the sound of a gasoline-powered wood chipper, coming from the direction of the common area bordering his property. The conflict begins not with shouting, but with a piece of paper. Elijah walks inside, the camera following him to his massive, mahogany kitchen island, where an official letter rests. The letterhead reads, "The Preserve at River's Edge Homeowners Association." He doesn't need to read it, he knows the contents. It's a cease and desist, followed by a declaration of intent to repossess. The key phrase is underlined in red: the artificial landmass created by the homeowner is deemed a common area improvement, built without proper permits, and due to its substantial value and impact on the aesthetic balance of the preserve, it will be absorbed into the HOA's jurisdiction for the benefit of all residents. Elijah picks up his phone. He dials a number, his thumb hovering over the call button, but he cancels the action. He walks back out to his deck. He doesn't look angry, he looks surgical. The wood chipper stops. A figure emerges from the trees. It's Robert, 60s, chairman of the HOA, stiff, overly formal, holding a clipboard. He catches Elijah's eye across the water. Robert doesn't wave, he gives a small, predatory nod. Elijah looks past Robert, past the perfect lawns, to his own island. The willow tree shimmers in the morning light. He remembers the sweat, the effort, the reason he built it. The camera zooms into the plaque near the bridge, partially obscured by moss. The inscription reads, "For my anchor." He sets his coffee down, a faint tremor in his hand. The silence after the wood chipper is vast. The camera shifts to a softer, warmer tone, a flashback sequence introduced by the voiceover. You can't understand the betrayal until you understand the bond that was broken. Robert wasn't just a neighbor, he was the first man to shake my hand on this street. The early days 5 years earlier. The neighborhood is still new, dirt roads and construction noise. Elijah and his wife, Sarah, 50s, kind, an artist, are shown laying the first foundation stones for their island pond. It wasn't just a feature, it was therapy. Sarah had recently been diagnosed with a chronic, debilitating condition. They couldn't travel to the calm, secluded places they loved, so Elijah decided to bring that peace home. He built the pond first, then the island, a small, safe, private haven, painstakingly engineered to be self-sustaining. Robert, then just a friendly neighbor, would come over with beers, watching the heavy machinery move earth. He was fascinated. "Elijah, this is incredible. You've created a landscape," Robert had said, genuinely impressed. "It's a little slice of paradise, my friend." The island's purpose. The island became Sarah's sanctuary. Montage scenes show Sarah reading under the willow, painting, or simply sitting in silence. It was a place where she felt whole, a permanent memory of Elijah's devotion. This emotional core is vital. The island isn't property, it's a living memorial of love and sacrifice. The HOA, at the time, was relaxed, primarily focused on minor aesthetic control. Robert was elected chairman, and his initial policies were moderate. However, the cracks began to show as the neighborhood matured and the jealousy set in. The envy started small. A comment from a neighbor, Martha, 60s, Sharp, Robert's ally, about how the island makes everyone else's garden look lazy. Then, the letters started, not about the island directly, but about water usage or unauthorized foliage. All were addressed to Elijah, signed by Robert. Each was easily dismissed with facts, but the intent was clear. The shift accelerated after a high-profile, neighborhood fundraiser was held at Elijah and Sarah's house. Everyone loved the island. They took photos, they raved. Robert, standing stiffly by the entrance, looked less like a host and more like an overseer. Foreshadowing and warning the subtle warnings, the surveying crew, 3 months before the letter, Elijah found a small, almost invisible orange surveyor's flag taped to the base of his wooden bridge. When he called Robert about it, Robert apologized profusely, blaming a new hire mistake that confused his lot line with the common area. Elijah had a momentary, gut feeling that the flag was no mistake. The new bylaw, a month later, a notice of a new bylaw revision was slipped under Elijah's door. It was titled, Clarification of Water Feature and Common Area Boundary Determination. It was dense, obtuse legalese, almost impossible to read. But Elijah's lawyer friend, CHLOE, 40s, sharp corporate lawyer, had flagged a single, worrying section that subtly redefined adjacent common water features to include any property boundary that interacts with more than 50% of a common access area. It was a thinly veiled attempt to lay groundwork for a future claim. Elijah wrote it off as paranoia. The disturbing end. The flashback ends one quiet evening. Elijah is pulling his recycling bin back from the curb. He sees Robert and Martha across the street, standing in Robert's garage, which is bathed in the harsh white light of fluorescent bulbs. They aren't talking loudly, but their body language is conspiratorial, heads bent close, papers spread out on a workbench. As Elijah turns away, he catches a glimpse of one of the papers Robert is pointing at. It's a satellite image of the neighborhood. Robert's finger is pressed hard, directly on the small, perfect circle of Elijah's island. It's not just about a bylaw anymore. It's targeted. It's personal. Elijah's voiceover returns, quiet, the tone set by the low hum of realization. Paranoia is just foresight in disguise. They weren't just jealous, they were scheming. And they had been for a long, long time. The unraveling. After receiving the HOA's official letter of intent to seize, Elijah doesn't immediately call his lawyer or shout at Robert. He goes silent. He tells Sarah nothing, maintaining the peaceful facade of the island. His shock isn't explosive, it's a cold, deep paralysis. He starts with the HOA letter. The legal claim hinges on a critical detail: the island's creation used dirt and fill sourced from the adjacent common area wetland, a protected, undeveloped scrubland the HOA nominally controls, meaning the island itself is an unauthorized accretion of common property. Elijah remembers the construction. He remembers paying an exorbitant amount to have all the material for the island trucked in from an independent quarry 10 miles away, specifically to avoid using common land in any future disputes. The trail of paper. The disbelief spurs him into action. He doesn't call a lawyer yet, he wants to build the case first. He dives into the digital archives of his life, bank records. He finds the $45,000 transaction for the limestone and engineered fill from Quarry Stone and Landscape. Permit history. He finds the original county permits, stamped and approved, for private water feature excavation and landscaping. Crucially, the permits reference the engineered fill source, not the common land. The missing link. The HOA's claim seems baseless, yet they are proceeding with such confidence. He realizes they must have forged a document, or found a flaw in the original deed. The secret meeting. Elijah uses a neighborhood contact, a quiet, older woman named Miss Jenkins, 70s, gossipy, but principled, who volunteers to drop off a few items at the HOA office, which is in a small community center. Mrs. Jenkins reports a strange observation: Mr. Elijah, I saw Robert and Martha in that office, but they weren't looking at any paperwork. They were staring at a map on the wall. And there was a younger man with them. He looked like a land developer. This is the turning point. The HOA doesn't want the island for the community, they want the land for profit. Elijah recalls the adjacent common water features bylaw change. He cross-references it with local municipal records and discovers that the undeveloped common wetland next to his property has recently been rezoned from conservation to low-density commercial, a project pushed through quietly by a company called River's Edge Acquisitions. The grand scheme he puts it together in one stunning, horrifying realization: River's Edge Acquisitions, likely Robert/Martha secretly, wants to develop the wetland. However, their access road development is constrained by Elijah's property line and the narrow strip of common land between his lot and the lake. If they can absorb Elijah's man-made island and its connecting land, claiming it was built from common materials, they can justify moving his boundary back slightly, giving their development project a wider, more accessible commercial entryway and a massive lakefront view. The island wasn't a coveted amenity, it was a barrier to their development profits. Elijah sits down at his kitchen table, the light from the window catching the dust motes dancing in the air. He is not shaking with anger, but with a bone-deep sense of violation. They didn't just try to steal his land, they tried to erase a part of his love for Sarah for a few extra dollars. He clenches his fist, then relaxes it slowly. He looks out at the willow tree on the island. He picks up the HOA letter and gently tears it in half, then into 4 pieces, dropping them into the waste bin. He whispers, a vow that is all the more powerful for its calm delivery: I won't fight in anger, I'll wait. They want a battle of land, I'll give them a battle of knowledge. The tone becomes one of methodical, intellectual warfare. Elijah's demeanor is now that of a general mapping out a battlefield. The voiceover explains, when you fight a monster that uses the rulebook as its weapon, you don't burn the book. You memorize it. The legal counterattack: Elijah immediately calls Chloe, the sharp corporate lawyer he previously consulted. He lays out the full conspiracy: the fake material sourcing claim, the quiet rezoning, the HOA's self-serving bylaw change, and the suspicion of Robert's financial ties to River's Edge Acquisitions. Chloe is initially skeptical of the level of conspiracy, but Elijah provides evidence: the quarry stone receipts, the original building permits, and the municipal rezoning documents. She becomes a focused, dedicated ally. The research: days turn into weeks of late-night research. Elijah and Chloe pore over the original covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC and RS, that govern the preserve, all 200 pages of it. They don't look for loopholes, they look for the bedrock principles of the neighborhood's foundation. The Achilles heel: they find it in an obscure, often forgotten amendment from 1982, titled, Annexation and Inclusion Protocol for Riparian Properties. This clause was written when the neighborhood's master plan was drafted, anticipating future development along the river. The silent chess match while Elijah and Chloe research, Robert and Martha are moving forward. They send escalating legal notices, demanding Elijah provide soil samples, threatening daily fines, and setting a court date for an injunction to temporarily seize the island for forensic examination. Elijah complies with every petty demand, but he does so through Chloe, providing them with mountains of irrelevant, accurate data, masking his true work. He remains calm, his house lights often staying on until 3 a.m. The man-made reality: the key to Elijah's defense lies not in the material used to build the island, but in the land itself. Chloe explains the loophole in the 1982 Annexation Protocol. The original CC and RS state that any naturally occurring or permanently connected riparian landmass created on an owner's property after the initial platting, by natural forces, is subject to HOA review. But, the CC and RS explicitly exclude land masses whose base foundation was built upon a fully and originally platted private water feature, like your pond, provided it was built with approved external materials. Elijah's pond wasn't just a hole in the ground, it was an officially platted, private water feature, on the deed, approved by the county. Therefore, the island, built within the boundaries of a platted private feature using approved external materials, is exempt from the HOA's annexation clause. The final piece of evidence: Elijah now knows how to defeat them, but he wants to deliver poetic justice, exposing their profit motive. He needs to confirm Robert's ties to River's Edge acquisitions. A late-night dive into corporate registration databases reveals the final piece: Martha's daughter is listed as the sole proprietor of River's Edge acquisitions. This is why the HOA used her firm to draft the new bylaw change and why they were so confident. It wasn't an official HOA decision, it was a family hustle, using the HOA's power for their private gain. Elijah prints out the corporate registration document. He places it in a red folder with the 1982 CCNR annexation protocol. He stands on the deck, looking out at the island. Robert's house is dark. Elijah speaks one final, teasing line into the microphone, his voice a chilling blend of confidence and satisfaction. They had no idea what was coming. They thought they were playing a game of chess, I was playing a game of cartography. The scene opens in the county courthouse, Civil Hearing Room 3. The atmosphere is quiet, tense, and professional. The air conditioning hums. The camera focuses on Elijah, impeccably dressed, sitting calmly next to Chloe. Across the room, Robert is there with Martha and the HOA's counsel, a stiff, arrogant man named Mark Harris. Robert has a look of overconfident anticipation. He expects a quick victory based on his fabricated evidence. The prosecution's case. Mr. Harris presents the HOA's case first, relying on two key documents, the recent bylaw amendment and a fabricated letter from a former contractor claiming Elijah used unmarked local fill for the island. Harris finishes with a flourish, presenting the island as an arrogant act of self-enrichment, built on common land. Robert gives a tight, satisfied smile. The defenses reveal Chloe's stance, her opening statement simple: "We are not here to debate the materials used to build this landmass, Your Honor. We are here to debate the nature of the landmass itself." She approaches the bench. The cinematic sounds begin, the light tap of her heels on the marble floor, the sharp clack of a folder opening. Step 1, the foundation. Chloe introduces the original county plat map of Elijah's property, overlaid with the building permit for the private water feature. CHLOE, to the judge, the island sits entirely within the boundaries of a legally platted, privately owned, and artificially created water feature, an area that has never been HOA common property. Step 2, the exemption. Chloe then introduces the obscure 1982 CCNR annexation protocol. She reads the key line regarding landmasses built upon a platted private water feature using approved external materials. A look of dawning horror spreads across Robert's face. He tries to whisper to Harris, but Harris waves him off, already fumbling for his own copy of the CC&Rs, the one he clearly never read beyond the last amendment. Step 3, the poetic justice, the intent. This is the moment of maximum satisfaction. Chloe doesn't stop with the legal victory. She looks directly at the HOA table. CHLOE, Your Honor, the plaintiff, the HOA, is attempting to seize Mr. Elijah's private property under false pretenses and a fabricated claim of common property use. The true intent of this action is revealed not in their bylaws, but in their financial motives. Chloe slides the red folder to the clerk. Inside are the documents revealing the rezoning of the adjacent wetland to commercial use and the corporate registration listing Martha's daughter as the proprietor of River's Edge acquisitions. The silence is deafening. The only sound is the quick, rhythmic shuffle, shuffle, shuffle of the clerk handing the documents to the judge. The judge reads them, a slow, stern furrow appearing on his brow. He looks from the documents to Robert and Martha, who are now ashen. Judge, voice firm, low, Mr. Harris, it appears your client, in their capacity as HOA leadership, was attempting to use the authority of the Homeowners Association for a direct, self-serving, and highly profitable private land development scheme, utilizing a misleading claim against the defendant's deed. Is that correct? Harris is speechless. Robert looks down, his hands trembling. The climax, the judge doesn't waste time. He slams his gavel, a sharp, final clang, that echoes in the quiet room. Judge, the court finds that the HOA's claim is baseless, not merely in law, but in intent. The injunction to seize the land is immediately dissolved. Furthermore, the court orders an immediate investigation into the conduct and financial dealings of the HOA board members concerning their conflict of interest with the River's Edge Acquisitions development. Mr. Elijah, your land is, and remains, yours. Applause starts softly from the public gallery. Mrs. Jenkins is dabbing her eyes, but Chloe raises a hand to silence it. Elijah stands. He doesn't look at Robert. He simply turns and walks out, leaving the stunned, defeated HOA board members sitting in their ruined conspiracy. The camera returns to Elijah's deck, a year later. It is evening, a golden hour. The sound is now only the gentle, rhythmic lap, lap, lap of the water against the island's stone edge. The atmosphere is one of profound peace. The calm after the storm. Elijah's voiceover is reflective, philosophical. The true measure of justice isn't how loud you can yell, but how quiet the peace is afterward. Robert and Martha were removed from the HOA board following the judge's order and the subsequent investigation. They faced no jail time, but the financial penalties, legal fees, and, worst of all, the public humiliation, the exposure of their petty, avaricious scheme, was a complete and satisfying undoing. They still live in the neighborhood, but they are ghosts, avoided by every neighbor. Their silence is the loudest form of justice. The development plan for River's Edge Acquisitions fell apart. The land remains an undeveloped wetland, now permanently protected by a new, ironclad HOA bylaw pushed through by the new, ethical board, a bylaw Elijah discreetly helped draft. The lesson learned. Elijah is sitting on the deck, but this time, he's not drinking coffee alone. Sarah is with him. She's better now, stronger, painting a small scene of the island. Elijah, voiceover, they taught me that jealousy is the cheapest emotion, and it will bankrupt the soul. I learned that my love, the one that built the island, was a better foundation than any legal document. My property wasn't under their control because the land I created was born of something they could never touch, devotion. He walks across the small wooden bridge onto the island. He gently places his hand on the trunk of the willow tree. The philosophical ending. The camera pulls back, showing the entire preserved neighborhood, the identical houses, the perfect lawns, but only Elijah's house has a private, shimmering oasis. The final shot is of the plaque on the bridge, "For my anchor." Elijah looks toward the horizon, a look of profound contentment on his face. He delivers the memorable final line, a poetic summary of the entire journey: "They coveted my garden." They should have realized a man-made island isn't built on dirt and stone, it's built on the principle of who controls the map. If you enjoyed this smart, emotional revenge story about using the law, not violence, to reclaim what's yours, please like and subscribe.